Hello and welcome to the February 10th Coordination Circle for the Lifeboat Academy. And as is our custom, we start by acknowledging the land. And Mondays, I usually do the CJ group, and I usually do the land acknowledgement. And the response is often, wow, that was, no one can do a land acknowledgement like you. And I feel really weird about it because I always just wing it. And all I'm doing is just speaking from my my understanding that the land was here before we were, and the land will be here after we are gone. And in a very, very literal sense, we only exist because of land and the land and all of our relations. And it's the oxygen that we breathe and the water that we drink and the food that we eat. And uh, so anyhow, I think I encourage everyone to do your own land acknowledgement and do it a lot because eventually it turns into something that you just can sort of feel into. And so having said that, it also brings with it certain obligations because once we understand how we are connected to all of our living relations and to the ancestors and to the land and all of our more than human relations, you start to realize that to take care of myself, I need to take care of everyone else. And in a way that is not martyrdom, but is just reciprocity. And part of that care also means acknowledging where harms have happened and doing what I can whenever I can to heal those harms. And so, in acknowledging the land, we're also acknowledging our obligation of care, which extends to the land, to all of our relations, and in particular to our indigenous relations, who have definitely been, those relationships have been harmed. And so we acknowledge our deep debt of gratitude and we commit ourselves. We use this as a reminder that we're all in this together, and um, it is all about reciprocity. And um, you do as good as you can until you know better, and then you do better. And so, with that reminder, I invite us just to take a moment to physically and energetically ground yourself where you are. So feel free to get comfortable. You might close your eyes if you'd like to, or find a soft gaze, and just become aware of the weight of your body pressing down into the seat where you are, that gentle tug of gravity holding you there. And be aware of your breathing in, breathing out, breathing in fresh, energizing oxygen, breathing out spent carbon dioxide, knowing that your carbon dioxide becomes the in-breath of our green relatives and they exhale spent oxygen for us. And as you're taking those breaths in, just feel your body expanding and then relaxing. And take one deep breath in, breathing in from all our relations. And then on the exhale, just let go of anything that keeps you from being present. And then in your own time, come find your way back to the circle. I needed that. I'm glad for that. So, we are here for our coordination circle, and this is, we are kind of easing back into our normal routine after all of the excitement of doing our annual planning and our charrette and getting all of the guilds up and running, or you know, readjusted for the new year. So we're going to lean into the old process, our standard way of doing our um, coordination circle. So we've had a chance to do a grounding, and let's just do a quick check-in. Keep it simple. How you doing? Circles, I see it, Ronnie, Roland, and then me. So Ronnie, how you doing?
I'm really tired. Um, at work, we have a trial this week, and our client is awful. And we've just been spending weeks preparing, and it's just really stressful. It's been stressful. It's the first time that I've been taking my job home.
Hmm.
So, yeah, just trying to manage um, stress and all the commitments that I have in addition to that. Um, but yeah, but it's also tired in a good way, like tired because I'm doing a lot of good work. So it's not entirely a negative thing. So uh, yeah, that's all. Pass to Roland.
I have been enjoying an opportunity to practice um, managing um, anxiety around everything. Over to Ben.
Yeah, I'm feeling just I have a bit of a headache today and feeling tired. And I think it is I feel like likewise, I think I've been doing a good job at managing, and it's management, you know. And so think I kind of feel like well, and it comes in waves, right? You know, and I had a family call last night, and every time I talk to my family, there's the kind of the reality as it's hitting other people, and um, all those complex feelings, anger, frustration, impotence, fear. Um, so yeah, me too. Um, so that is a reminder, and part of the reason we do a check-in is let us be gentle with each other and ourselves, and uh, in, everything in context. So moving through, and actually kind of a good segue, revisiting our North Star. So why are we here when we're all tired and stressed and etc.? And what are we trying to accomplish together? Why is it important? And where are we now? And as is our normal practice, um, we'll go twice around, once around for your initial share, once around to reflect on what you're hearing. You can answer any one or all three or any combination of the questions, whatever it means to you. It's just a chance to connect again with the big picture why. So um, over to you, Ronnie.
Hmm. Um, why is it important? Collapse is happening, and people are anxious and scared and in need of support emotionally and practically to get through this time. Um, that's all I'm able to say right now. Pastor Roland.
Um, uh, just very recently, and maybe even today, I was reading something that Ben wrote, and it reminded me of um, what was it that you wrote? It was um, we have been fixating on the what and not on the how. Um, because I think, you know, uh, this is we are in, and I have the conviction that we are in a multi-generationally traumatized society, that has been traumatizing the planet over a long period of time. So in a way, collapse has been happening over a long period of time, and that we are experiencing it in a very um, subjective way at the moment. And even that experience is unevenly distributed, and ongoing and changing. Um, so this is, as any present moment is, it's the culmination of what came before. And what we're doing is, what we're endeavoring to do, our experiment, as in living life as an experiment, is to look at the how, and to be able to provide that as not only a way to move forward, but also as help and comfort and solace for those who are along with us, are experiencing the troubles of this time. Uh, and I think that's what we're in this ongoing conversation with our current reality, um, uh, through everything that we've been doing, and now through the charrette, and through the 2025 cohort, um, is to continue our exploration of the how, to find to find um, to be able to remove the hows that are causing harm or don't work, to be able to get to a how that works better, at least for now, since everything is temporal. So over to Ben.
That's beautiful. I don't know that I have yeah, yeah. And it makes me think of um, apocalypse is just revelation that nothing new here, folks. We're like Roland was saying, we're just seeing this sort of culmination of, and I would say it's a culmination of denial, and that the problem is that we have not, we as a as a species have not been in an ongoing conversation with reality. We've been trapped in a delusion um, for quite a long time. And so we're refamiliarizing ourselves with reality, and that can be shocking as we're coming out of the soft pink comfort of fantasy lands. And uh, and of course, unevenly distributed. For some people, they're stuck in the the blurry Mr. Magoo lenses, not seeing the consequences of their own actions. And yeah, so it can be shocking, but ultimately, there's nothing scary about reality. Um, it just seems that way, I think. And I think maybe there's something scary about being trapped in a reality with people who don't see it. That is terrifying. But ultimately, reality is going to win. And so we should be on the side of reality. Um, yeah, wow, that was a very interesting first share, and we'll do once more through just for reactions, responses. What's landing with you? What are you noticing? Over to you, Ronnie.
I kind of feel like we're lamp lighters, like we are lighting the path one small section at a time by experimenting and considering many perspectives, many experiences, many questions, and sharing that learning with other people and saying, based on all of this, this is our best guess for how to move forward in a way that is really the 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 way of least suffering. I think I'm really thinking in this, at least in this moment, that's what it comes down to. And not just for people. I think that's the key here is like the least amount of suffering for all beings. Yeah. Pass to Roman.
Um, I'm still on the not the what, but the how kick. Uh, and I forgot our process, so I put in the chat what I would like to say at this round. So I'm just going to say it out loud that Ben was talking about this is new. We've seen this before. And so I was thinking, countless people have broken their arms before, and when it happens to me, it's still not fun. So sort of acknowledging that the times are difficult and that it's actually okay to experience them as difficult and not and that would be reducing suffering, actually being able to acknowledge this is hard. What can I do to reduce the suffering? Um, and so I really like the image of the lamplighters, and in keeping with the how kind of way of thinking, that what we're actually sharing is is how we experiment and how we learn. The Our learning is the how to learn. So it's the learning to unlearn, to relearn. And that's this um, reciprocal relationship with everyone that we come into in contact with. Is, teaching is learning, and learning is teaching, kind of kind of culture of reciprocity. Over to Ben.
Um, I am thinking on two levels, and the one level is we've been talking about how we capture sort of testimonials, and this needs a broader audience. And I feel like this is a great example of how this what you were just saying, how we uh, both of what you were saying are that this is how we light the lamp is by sort of gathering around perspectives, illuminating the path, and asking the question is it's asking the questions. It's not the answers you come up with. The answers are always provisional. Um, and and likewise, I really like the suffering. I think just another ditto on what Roland was saying about being able to differentiate pain from suffering, and pain is unavoidable, and suffering is not. Or, right, yes, pain is unavoidable, and suffering is something that we can actually address. And and there's going to be pain, and there's also going to be joy that matches the pain. And I think that's for me, I would say it's kind of an article of faith. I don't know, I can't prove this, but I feel like if you remove the suffering, the joy and the pain balance themselves out. I think that is the nature of yin and yang. And it is, but when you heap suffering on top of the pain, then that's when it becomes very overwhelming. Um, yeah, beautiful stuff. You lean into the process. The system works. So, all right. So we have had a chance to do our grounding and check-in and revisit our North Star. and review the annual plan and the seasonal plan. And actually, I think actually we are going to create that as we go through our guild reports. So I'm actually going to suggest that we start by doing a check-in on the guilds, and that will serve a bit as our seasonal plan. Does that make sense? So thumbs up or any, yeah. Alrighty. So then, heart work and philosophy. So what is the update? And in our notes, it's a space to talk about recent accomplishments and actions, plans and next steps, and any issues that we need to talk about as a group. So heart work and philosophy, that would be over to you, Roland.
Um, well, we are still in the transition period between the charrette and the launching of uh, the new group of lifeboat builders, the 2025 lifeboat builder group. So at the last meeting, we mostly started to look at um, the action plan for 2025, and we were looking at gathering the lessons learned from hosting the Connect the Dots Club, and we were also starting to think about planning. So the Heartward Guild would plan an in-person retreat at the Farmistery. So that would be linking with the Farm Food and Housing Guild, working at starting up the Farmistery or experimenting with the Farmistery. And we also talked about a little bit about the guild badges as well. But we spent most of the time talking about gathering considerations actually about the lessons learned from the Connect the Dots Club. And we will be continuing that at the next meeting. There's a note that we are supposed to think about it, review things, and then come with that at the next meeting. However, you know, man plans, God laughs, because there are also, hooray, people exciting who are interested. I'm really liking this to join the Heartwork Guild or who are at least curious about it. So there may be uh, um, uh, I'm there will be some onboarding happening for that. Um, so that is news from Heart Work and Philosophy. Uh, Back to you, Ben.
Da, 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 da. And now over the weather. So that makes sense to me, and I will just open it up to Ronnie if they are back for any questions or comments. And I think they've stepped off for, oh, and you're muted. Any questions or
I'm
comments?
here. Let me just read it really quick.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. That sounds good.
Yep. Awesome. Cool. All right. So next up then is research and learning. Okay, so that we are no longer paused. So research and learning, we still haven't had, that's actually on the next steps and it's sort of what Roland was saying. We have more interest now in the research and learning guild. So the next steps will be onboarding, we'll be uh, setting up the next meeting of the guild. And then onboarding new folks. And our first activity is the badges, right? So, and that is uh, developing that requires interaction with all of the other guilds. So that'll be something to, I guess, it would be my responsibility as the caretaker for this guild to contact the caretakers of each of the other guilds and to work out what's sort of a reasonable timeline for gathering badges from the groups, or how that'll work. So I guess that's another sort of next step is uh, coordinating with the caretakers. And the other thing is, I just had a conversation with April today where I was talking about the inviting other people to what we've just been calling the research project. And I think it's time to do that. And I had been putting it off because I wanted to have like something to actually propose. And I think it's probably just better given these are all interesting and knowledgeable people, and let's just bring everyone, see if anyone wants to get in the room together and then just talk about possibilities. So that's the other thing. And that's actually, there has been some activity there, planning for outreach. So yeah, that's my report from research and learning. Are there any questions or observations? Over to Ronnie.
Sounds good to me. Over to Roland.
Yeah, sounds good to me too, and I'm interested in this guild as well. Um, if I if it makes sense for me to if it makes sense.
Mhm.
So that's it for me. Over to you.
More the merrier. Um, Next up, finance and legal. Um, all right. Our recent activity, we met to go through final comments before. So there's a meeting is scheduled with the lawyers March 3rd, I want to say. Um, and we actually went through comment by comment and we made it a little over halfway. Um, uh, uh, we cut them categorized into sort of housekeeping things that we can just clean up. Some things that we need, a few items that we need to discuss internally, and then some items that are just really for the lawyers, like our list of our menu of things that we want to ask about at the meeting. Um, and we are still planning on developing a kind of a case study to invite lawyer friends to, we're calling it the lawyers conclave, just to talk about, to try to get different perspectives on how the bylaws could go. Because I think we've all had a crash course in legal stuff and come largely up to speed. And there are some questions that we realize are kind of, as Heather always says, beyond our pay grade. And we don't want just one perspective on it. So um, that's, the co-op has not been established in January. I think we can take that that off of there. But uh, so the next steps are meet with the lawyers and oops, and develop our case study for the lawyers conclave. And I'll throw it over to Roland too, just to see if there's anything you want to add.
Just to expand a little bit on the idea for the conclave, it was feeling that having a second opinion could be really useful because we're aware that uh, part of looking at the how is also being able to see the what, and uh, trying to build what comes after means looking at and challenging what exists now. And so uh, I know that I, as a member of the Finance and Legal Guild, need more information to get a better sense of of what's possible with the way things are set up at the moment. And so just like going to the doctors for and getting one opinion, it's good to get a second opinion just to be able to make decisions for yourself. And it's just kind of the same thing. So back to you, Ben.
That I'm good with that. Ronnie, any questions or observations?
The lawyers conclave sounds really cool. And
Yeah.
also makes me think of a bunch of lawyers meeting in a cave.
I imagine them lawyers with really fancy robes, and headdress kind of thing, coming
Yeah.
in with regalia. Um, cool. Oops. All right. So next up, farm, food, and housing. Over to you, Roland.
Oh, uh, we have a meeting time, and we also have new members, uh, two, maybe three people who are interested in joining the Farm Food and Housing Guild. And and this is part of the reason why I appreciate this the coordinator circle so much, is that it reminds me of things that I haven't done. And one of them is put on the calendar when we're meeting. Ah, I got it. I did put it on the calendar. We're meeting on Thursday. Is it of this week? Yeah, first
Yeah.
meeting will be Thursday of this week at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So nothing really to announce there. The the proposal for the activity for the Farm Food and Housing Guild is a lot around the idea of the pharmastery. But the first meeting will likely be again for us to orient ourselves to the Farm Food and Housing Guild, since it hasn't met in so long, and also do some onboarding with people who are interested in joining and sticking around. Any questions or comments? Over to Ronnie.
This is exciting. I'm excited to know that people are getting involved and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of it. Over to Ben.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that we're also having an uptick in woofer activity. And so I actually have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with a local woofer who's interested. And I honestly believe that most of the woofers that are contacting us are interested in Lifeboat in particular. And they're not just looking for which is not to say we're the only game in town. I think there are lots of, like, I think of Abundance, which is another farm that has sort of a similar vision. But I think people are specifically looking for the kind of way of being on the land that we are talking about. And they're not just interested in animal husbandry or, how to grow veggies. So I think that's also exciting. Um, cool. All right. I think we're done there. Um, and ready to move on. Doc? Okay, so last but not least, out to outreach.
So, at our meeting last week, we fleshed out our plan for how to implement storytelling. So, we focused a bit more on the short term, starting small, um, step by step, how to start looking for nuggets in our recorded sessions to use as testimonials. We also talked through um, a place for our social media passwords and keeping things secure. Sorry, I have a frog in my throat. We also had a discussion about gradually leaving the Meta platforms, and we're going to have another discussion soon about the kind of nitty-gritty of what that's going to look like. And then last week, I also met with Kath to talk about storytelling, and some cool things came of that. One of them is she has a subscription to a software that lets her do unlimited transcriptions of videos. So we can upload our videos to that software and it will do it for us. And she said, "You are welcome to use it. I'll give you the login info. And I'll also be available to support if you have any questions or
Oh.
problems." So she just kind of offered that. And after I told her what our plan was, and that was really wonderful and generous.
Mhm.
We also talked about the multi-value flower, which I don't know if y'all have seen that, but some members of Vivero, which I don't think it may not exist anymore, but they created this flower that has all of these different categories. They're different kinds of value. And the point of it is to move beyond capitalist value, so financial value. And as it's a tool for considering the value that something is bringing to your life. So spiritual value, um, emotional value, financial value. I can't remember what all of them are, but I really, really like it as a tool. And I think I have a copy of it somewhere that I could send to everybody. But I wanted to bring that forward as a potential tool for us to use as we think about reciprocity and we think about and we invite people into thinking about all the different ways that we can receive value and offer value. Um, So yeah, I really, really like that tool. And then Kath also extended an invitation to both of you to do the storytelling interview the same one that she did with me. She calls it her inner ecology interview or something. Just so that both of you can get familiar with kind of the process that she uses and also as a way of building more relationship, building more trust. She also she's interested in coming back to our navigation sessions because she really likes them and appreciates them and wants to just continue building relationship with us. So it was a really, really great meeting. It felt very generative and very aligned, and a lot of flow in different directions. So that's the update on that. And then in terms of next steps, we talked about starting to look for, like I already mentioned, nuggets from our videos to use as testimonials. We have this transcription tool now. I'm going to get that info from Kath. Yeah, I'll remember. And then we talked about discussing our process for leaving Meta, as well as discussing how we're using social media platforms more generally, just because there's been a lot of transition. We're now using Blue Sky and Mastodon and just kind of all getting on the same page about all these different tools and how we can maximize them. Also, it is a newsletter week. And so I would like to know what we're putting in the newsletter specifically around Lifeboat Builder support, and what we want to say to folks about next steps for that.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not trying to get it out tomorrow. I just wanted to put it on the radar that it's been 2 weeks since we put one out. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, that's what I got. Any comments or questions? Over to you, Roland.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, that all sounds good. And newsletter. So do we want to take it? I'm guessing we take a little time today to talk about newsletter stuff.
And I'm,
Um,
yeah, sorry.
yeah, my
Just a
turn.
process thing. I was thinking, let's add that to, so we're doing reviews now. That'll now be an agenda item, and then we'll go and we'll
Okay,
talk about the agenda stuff.
okay. I was the multi-value flower sounds interesting. And I'm wondering if that's a heart work or a Curiosity Guild thing. So, and I'm kind of leaning towards the Curiosity Guild, but I think this is one of these gray areas. And yeah, I think that's all. I'm excited about the transcription stuff. Uh, and yeah, I would like to accept Kath's invitation for the storytelling gig. So that's it for me.
Um, yeah, me too. And I'm excited that Kath wants to come back to navigation sessions and uh yeah, I'm excited. I'm all over that relationship. I think she's great. And um yeah, and I think that I like Rutland's question about the multi-value flower, and it's sort of actually this is treat everything kind of like a protocol. How does something like, oh, this is an interesting idea. It actually could be finance and legal also, because it's thinking about how do we talk about our value. So yeah, it's a great thing to bring up, I think, in the coordination circle. And then we should think about, well, what so what? Like how do we want to use that? So this is great. And I'm glad to be talking about the newsletter too. I had it on my radar as I just wanted to check in about we can always adjust the schedule and what schedule makes the most sense now. So yeah, I've got that added to our agenda. So I think we're good for guilds, for guild reports. And so having said that, I'm trying to, my mouse is, there we go. So going back to, we want to talk through the newsletter. I also, and I think this is, um, actually, I'm going to put this as next steps for Lifeboat builders. And I think that relates to the newsletter as well, right? So, um, any other agenda items? Over to you, Ronnie.
Not that I can think of, and just a note that I need to leave at 45 minutes after the hour. So I have 30 minutes ish. Over to Roland.
Uh, I think it's kind of in the next step for Lifeboat Builders. I was thinking of a reminder to finish homework on the Miro board for people. I'm imagining that there seems to have been a lot of activity. I added links to descriptions for some of the new resources. Um, and yeah, just if anyone wants to do last minute additions or review what they've put down or haven't started yet or need to finish something that they started, then putting in a reminder in this video for anyone who's watching, as well as in the newsletter. And yeah, and probably not to talk about today, but I and actually I probably would want April and maybe more people to weigh in, but it's also it's more of an outreach question, but I think it's also a coordination circle question about how we want, what do we want to take a clear position on things that are happening in the world? Can we make comments on social media about stuff? And what are the parameters, or what's the how would we do that so that it is representative of the organization and not just of an individual? I've been chomping on the bit a lot, and We don't need to talk about it today, but it's something I'd like to put on the docket to talk about. That's it for me.
And I'm going to get us back into the habit of having a backlog or attention log. And actually, and I will put in the so we have a placeholder for some of those ideas that have come up. Um, and I think so. I can you see the Miro board now? Is that showing? Okay. Um, because I was um part of the question is how do we move forward then on stuff. We've got interest in guilds, so that's easy for each of the guilds. Caretakers should reach out to the people that have expressed interest, and I can send out like a caretaker email that just has, here's who has expressed interest. Um, we have interest in navigating tensions and agreement circles, and limited interest in Connect the Dots Club. I was also noticing that we don't have one of the homework things is to put dots on where you want to do a deep dive, and we don't have many dots. So that may be in that reminder. So I guess I sort of was thinking that we could talk about how we use this information for next steps, but I feel like Roland's point, we need to kind of get an update. Um, I'm going to ask that as a question because I'm not sure exactly the best way to proceed. Um, and it feels kind of like, so here I'm going to propose that we aim for getting the newsletter out for next week. And that gives us this week to finalize what we think is going to go in it, which would be the supports. And is that a reasonable timeline, I guess? And yeah, I feel like I'm floundering. I think this is anyhow, I'm gonna pass it around now because I feel like I'm sort of going in a circle. So is what I'm saying making any sense? Over to you, Ronnie.
Yes. Yes. Um, my thought around figuring out the supports. First of all, we don't have to offer everything at once. So even if there's not a lot of interest in Connect the Dots Club right now, that could be a summer thing. That could be a fall thing. Um, in terms of what people have really expressed interest in, my thought is to do some reflecting on the schedules that we've used previously, and how did those work? How did those seem to work for people rather than trying to reinvent the wheel on that? So the navigation sessions and the agreement circles, we have a whole last year of uh, experiments schedule wise to look at. And then I hesitate to ask lifeboat builders to fill out another scheduling form, but also sometimes it is helpful. So I don't know. I'm curious what other people think about that. Um, but I definitely want to send something out next week with at least some of the scheduling in place for people to start getting support. So yeah, that's what I have for now. Over to Roland.
I think uh, I'm trying to think of this as stepped, and I may miss a step or make a so. My suggestion is that we don't worry too much about signups for the Connect the Dots or anything else, even and we we don't worry about the dots. I mean, I think putting up reminding people that that's one of the things to do in the newsletter, I think is good. But I think that actually the next step is to schedule the general onboarding because you were talking about doing an onboarding. And I think that that's actually the next step because it's at the onboarding where you can go over stuff like, actually what is the connect the dots? And the connect the dots is a time that's used for the lifeboat builders. So it's actually kind of part of the curriculum. And what is the agreement circle? And, in terms of exploring the how and not the what, I think the agreement circle is I'm still on that kick for the how. The agreement circle seems to be a good place to be able to do deep dives on what that actually means. So I think the next step, and I would I would propose that we use the same schedule as we used for the 101 thing because it was taking into consideration time zones. Um, and so that we have two of the onboarding sessions. And at the onboarding sessions, we go into more detail about the different parts and what they actually mean in terms of support for the lifeboat builders. And that might also actually be an opportunity to talk about the schedule and to ask, you know, and to maybe even do it anyway. I don't know how you would do that, but it may be an opportunity to like have people there, not to actually do the scheduling, but first to ask, these are times, I don't know, anyway, not to do the scheduling specifically, but rather to see if there's a need for scheduling, whatever that actually might look like. I'm going to stop. I'm done.
Um, this all makes sense to me, and uh, I think it keeps everything really kind of tidy. Um, I am wondering if I get the hesitation about a meeting poll, and especially because different people are interested in different things, and we don't want to necessarily have to send out something for everything. So I am wondering if there's a way of gathering people's general availability and say, if we know what time zone they're in, and like there's some people we know who are they 9 to 5, they are in a job. So, they're not available. And no matter what, we don't have to ask them that. We can, kind of know they're going to need an alternative. So if people could kind of say and Roland, Tuesdays and Wednesdays don't work. And if we just had that kind of information for everybody who, then we could kind of go and I think even if we had it, I'm not sure the easiest way of gathering that, but it seems to me even people could just give us as much or as little information as possible, and we'd still know that if we're scheduling these three people and this one person's not available for during the day, we know that we're only going to offer evenings and weekends. Um, so that kind of feels like it sort of splits the difference. But I like Roland's idea of going with the lifeboat builder the orientation as or the whatever it was that yeah the other thing that we did um the 101 and then do an onboarding and the onboarding as it is currently designed was specifically around guilds and which I think is probably it's guilds and internal communication is basically and I think that probably still makes sense and then we can talk about these other things. um Yeah, that feels pretty coherent to me. So once more around for responses. What are you noticing? Anything standing out? Any additional thoughts, Ronnie?
Yeah, I really like that plan. And maybe in the onboarding sessions, we could ask, what are good times for you generally? And then people can just type them in the chat. Because that way we know whoever shows up is going to tell us, and we don't have to wait to hear back from people via email unless they can't make it, and then we'll just ask them. But that way we have that sort of more relational context, and then we can kind of tally when people are available. Um, I also, I hope this isn't too out of left field, but I had a thought recently about, is there a way that, is there a platform or a space where lifeboat builders could all talk to each other um, online?
Yeah.
And could that be part of the onboarding? So, how do the guilds work? Internal communications, who's who, and also how can people easily reach one another? Um, yeah, over to Roland.
Yeah, I don't think that's out of left field at all. I think you're picking up on things that people already working. Uh, I've heard from Ruth and from Andy and from Pamela and from April several times for a place to be able to get to know people and to hang out. And I think it's an interesting idea, and I don't know what that looks like virtually. Um, so I guess it's and I'm assuming that that's what we're thinking of is sort of like a virtual gathering. Um, I know that I'd never been to any of them, but that was the campfire thing. I don't know if that's what if that makes sense or anyway, I think it's a really good thing to bring up. I think it's picking up on things that people are already asking for and talking about, and it bears exploring and thinking about. Over to you, Ben.
Yeah, and it makes me think of social roots. And I guess it also depends on what kinds of interactions we're thinking this is about. Um, and as we are in the coordination circle, I'm also thinking this sounds like an outreach thing, or maybe it's an outreach plus heart work, since there's, a little bit of a combination of the technology, but also creating a space that's convivial. Um, I am resistant to doing anything like the campfires, and I would not stand in the way of anyone doing them, but we have such a challenge scheduling and getting people to show up at things. Adding one
Mm.
more thing that we're trying to convince people to come to, even though they're asking for it, and sort of staffing it and scheduling it and all of those things makes me a little fatigued. But but definitely I think having some sort of a place where you can go and you can find somebody's email or some way of connecting with them, and initiating a conversation. So yeah, I think I don't think it's out of left field at all. I think it's a really important thing. And and I guess the question is, how do we move it forward? So um, do we can we delegate this to outreach, or do we need to set up a special meeting time for outreach and heart work to talk this through? Or like what's the next step look like? Any thoughts there? Ronnie, over to you.
It feels like an outreach thing to me, and it also feels connected to the conversation about how do we use social media, because this is about what platforms are we on, how do we use them, why do we use them? Um, Social roots to me seems like it's a social network, but it's contained. It would
Yeah.
just be anyone in the Lifeboat network would get to post and connect and everything. So um, I think this feels like there is a larger conversation that we have been talking about having. And we can have that as in the outreach guild and see where we get. Um, so I yeah, that feels good to me. Over to Roland.
Let's go with it. I don't have anything to add. I have no real knowledge in this area at all. So, and I don't have anything to add. So over to Ben.
Cool. Yeah, no, that sounds, I'm in agreement. I can also add that I know social groups would be excited if we used it. Like they want people to use it and they want it to be used in different contexts so that they can, and they are, Social Roots is Christina and Anna, and they want it to be used, and they're looking for um, they're just like us, treat everything as an experiment, and they need people to use it so that they can figure out how to fix it and make it better. So they're not only do they want us to use it, they want all of our feedback about, if it just had a button over here that did this, that would be great. And so I'll put that out there too. And I will make myself available for liaison with Anna and Christina. And yeah, that sounds like a great plan. So I feel like we're pretty much adjourned then. I just want to double check that we have clear next steps and who's going to do what. I will take on sending out the reminder um, for the Mira board. Um, what else do we need to do? I guess it's setting
Right.
the schedule.
Yeah, for the onboarding sessions.
And that's something to put in the newsletter. Actually, both of those things are also newsletter items.
Mhm. Which also means that we're going to schedule it after next week, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, but that just it kind of we need to
Right.
what we're posting in the newsletter, we need to give people some time to react to it,
So 2 weeks from this week is the week.
probably.
Yeah.
Probably something like that.
And do we want to just use the same times as we used for the 101?
I think that's a great idea.
Why not?
Yeah.
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 Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, if we're gonna do that, I could get the newsletter out this week, right? Because there's no other scheduling to figure out.
Yes, that's true.
So
But
we
it's also the way we did it before. Like we had it somehow in the charrette thing, the sequencing got changed because we
yeah.
had intentionally the Monday after the coordination circle is when the newsletter went out. Because
Hmm.
then that gave us the coordination circle to sort of plan what was going to get covered in the newsletter and time to develop it.
Okay.
So I think that still makes sense to me.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Does that work for you, Roland?
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh, and what do you want me to put? Do you want me to put in your latest Medium post or a Medium post?
I
Well,
want to do a weekly reflection. So I think I want to do something new.
Okay. Will you send it to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, all right. And do we have anything else? So Ronnie will be doing the newsletter and I'll do a reminder in the medium and I guess and then outreach will take on the social roots thing and that'll be um I think we're covered.
I think that is there anything that needs to be worked out in terms of facilitating or
Ooh,
content for the onboarding.
that's a good, yeah. I mean, it would basically be, it's probably you, me, or yeah, you, me, and April. So it's a
Yeah,
question. I'll send out an email.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
works.
And the same thing, we can all then, whoever takes an interest, we can talk through the content and whatnot.
Awesome.
Um, okay. I Are we good? I
Yep.
think we're really right around the hour mark. So that's pretty good. And we never used to get we have always had create sprint mantra and we very rarely get to it. So I don't know if we should keep with our tradition of not having a sprint mantra.
On
Or
keeping on.
yeah, that's pretty much how the mantras always went.
Yeah.
And that took longer than we thought. All right. I think we're ready then just for a checkout. So, once around the circle, last thoughts for the good of the cause. Over to you, Ronnie.
Good job. We got a lot done, and I'm excited about all of it. So, yeah, over to Roland.
A great example of focusing on the how, not the what. Over to you, Ben.
Yeah, and I think about it's anti-fragile as well. I feel like we're, kind of developing these muscles and it just becomes easier to stay focused and click through in a way that seems to work. So yeah, go team. All right. Well, onward and upward, and have a good rest of the week, and we'll see each other at various points.
Good luck with
Bye.
the
Bye.
work stuff.
Oh, thank
Oh
you.
yeah, good luck.
I appreciate it.